Hello, everybody. Welcome along. My name is Benjamin Bloom. This is the Benjamin Bloom Football Channel. Please leave your bias at the door and please welcome back Steve McClaren to Derby County. But it's not quite what it seems because he's not going to be the manager. We have had Mr. McClaren at Derby, crikey, as a player, coach, I think, under Jim Smith, then manager twice, and now he's going to be, and I quote, advisor to the board and technical director. So for those people who take one look at this and go, oh, McClaren back to Derby, terrible idea. No, it's a little bit different to that. It's a little bit more nuanced than that. And what we need to know is not only do Derby not have a manager, but they are in the midst of a takeover. And that is key now as to why Derby have done this, because it actually, when you think about it, gives them a little bit of sort of latitude and a few different ways they can go down the line as the season goes on, as the takeover happens, and as the new owners get their feet under the table. Let's have a look at the Derby County website, which tells us Steve McClaren has agreed to a contract to act as an advisor to the board with immediate effect. In this capacity, he will assume the roles of both advisor and technical director, a position which has been identified by agreement between Mel Morris, that's the current owner, and Deventio Holdings, that's the next owner, as important to the future of the club. So really, really important first, straight away, he's advisor to the board, and as of today, he's technical director, but Mel Morris is saying there that perhaps Derby might have needed a technical director in the past, and maybe the Deventio, the new owners, agree that having a technical director would be a good thing. What's a technical director? Well, a technical director essentially is somebody a level above the manager. Between the owner and the manager, you have the technical director who basically runs the football side of the club and works with the financial side to bring in players and all of that good stuff, which the manager then coaches. I'm not saying that's exactly what Steve McClaren will be doing or will end up doing, but that's what a technical director is. Most successfully, we've seen with Stuart Webber at Huddersfield promoted and at Norwich City promoted. Now, we read on. The permanent status of the technical director role will be subject to ratification by Deventio Holdings Board following the completion of the club acquisition. That is absolutely key. That's, in fact, the key statement in the whole thing. So as of today, Steve McClaren is advisor to the board and technical director. The takeover is then going to happen, and then the new owners will decide at some point between taking over and Armageddon whether or not they A, want a technical director, or B, they want Steve McClaren to be the technical director. So in terms of a short-term fix to basically succession planning, isn't it? Steve McClaren is essentially going to be the glue that bridges both sides of this ownership of Derby. He's going to be there at the end of this Mel Morris tenure and at the beginning of Deventio, and he could end up still being the technical director. We'll just read the rest of the article. Commenting on the announcement, Stephen Pearce, Chief Executive Officer, said, "We're delighted to have Steve's help and support at this critical time. His knowledge, experience, and academic qualifications," indeed, when have you ever heard that in terms of football, will be invaluable to us. I'm sure he'll make a huge contribution. So this could play out in one of a few ways. At the moment, Wayne Rooney and Liam Rossignol are kind of in interim charge. And as of today, they're in interim charge with Steve McClaren as their technical director. So What could happen now is that could work really, really well. And by Christmas, which will be game number 20, Derby could be climbing up the table and they could have new owners that may then say, well, we quite like this. Here's a 3-year contract, Wayne Rooney, Liam Rosenior. They've talked about bringing Darren Fletcher as well and Steve McClaren. And that could end up being the management team if it goes well. And they can kind of give those guys a trial to do it if they want to. So that's one thing that could happen. I'm not saying that will happen or whether that will work or whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm saying that could happen. What else could happen is, as of today, Wayne Rooney, Liam Rosenior have the jobs, interim management jobs. Steve McClaren, as of today, is the technical director. What they could then do is get the new owners in. The new owners could then decide that they like Steve McClaren as the technical director and keep him, but they want their own manager. In which case, they need to find someone who is happy to work with Steve McClaren as a technical director. There seems some intimation that the new owners want someone in that role, and then they slide that person in. Now, of course, the issue is whether or not certain managers they want will be happy to work with Steve McClaren as a technical director. In that instance, what happens to Rooney and Rosenior? I guess they go back to being coaches and they're working towards being on the staff. And maybe there might be the manager 2 appointments down the line or in 2 years' time, 5 years' time, whatever. The other thing that could play out, however, is, as of today, I'm repeating myself, but we need to state this every time, Wayne Rooney and Liam Rosenior are the managers, interim managers, and Steve McClaren is director of football, right? That could go really badly. And the takeover happens. Derby is still bottom of the league and the owners are panicking. They've bought this asset. They've got this interim manager and this technical director. And remember, if we read the article, the technical director role, the permanent status of the technical director role will be subject to ratification by Deventio Holdings Board following completion of the acquisition. So if it's going badly and they decide that they don't want a technical director or B, Steve McClaren to be the technical director, they can get out of it by the sounds of it. And then if they want to waft a load of money at one of these big names we've heard linked, Rafa Benitez, Sam Allardyce, Eddie Howe, and those 3 guys will likely, they might be happy to work with Steve McClaren, but they'll likely want autonomy and to bring their own team in with them. And people like Allardyce and Benitez particularly would be able to demand that with their standing in the game. They basically would say, this is how I want to do it. And, I'm take it or leave it. So that could be something that happens down the line as well. Whereas the kind of thinking is that somebody like a Paul Cook or a Ryan Lowe or even a Rooney, Rosenior, Darren Fletcher team, they might appreciate having a Steve McClaren in there. Whereas an Allardyce or a Benitez or a Howe, they might not want that there. So what I think Deventio and Morris have done quite cleverly is they've given themselves an out. If it takes 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks to do this takeover, they've still got options the other end of it. As I've stated, they go with Rooney, Rosenior, Fletcher. I'm not saying Fletcher's going to come in. I'm just, throwing that in there as well. And McClaren as the technical director. They go, that's one option. They go with McClaren, the technical director, and another manager. That's another option. Or they can get rid of McClaren as the technical director, either not have one or have a different one. And if they want their big name, Rafa Benitez, Sam Allardyce, Eddie Howe, they can pay that guy the 2.5, 3 million quid a year. It's probably going to cost them. And they don't have the issue of, oh, well, there's a technical director there in the way and we don't want him there and we'll have to sign that off. So, in short, I think it's quite smart if the takeover is still going to take a few more weeks. It's bought them some time. It's bought them some decision-making sort of options. And in the very short term, now Rooney and Rosenior can get some help from Steve McClaren, which, whatever you say about Steve McClaren, he's hugely experienced and he knows Derby and he knows the Championship. Yes, he was the Wally with the brolly. Yes, his last tenure at Derby was short. Yes, he tried Forest and it didn't work. Yes, he tried QPR and it didn't work, etc. However, if the only remit is he's short term and he's basically acquisition transition coordinator or what have you, then I think this is actually quite smart and gives them the options. And for goodness sake, if Rooney, Rosenior and McClaren win a load of games, they'll probably just keep them, won't they? Is another kind of on-the-job training, trial by doing the job type thing. So when you look at the headline and it says Steve McClaren returns to Derby, once you realise it's not in the manager's position, and once you realise the situation they're in and what popping him in there actually offers them in terms of options going forward, long-term and short-term assistance to Rooney and Rosenior, I think this is a good appointment. What happens in the future, we don't know. And if they get that wrong, and I've said this about Derby, if they get this wrong, they're in trouble because, yes, Derby is a huge club. Yes, Derby won the title in the 1970s. Yes, they have a big stadium and loads of fans. And in the main, they're challenging to get in the Premier League over the last certainly 7 or 8 years, hasn't it been? Back since McClaren was there and they lost in the playoff final to QPR. However, it does not matter how big your club is, how many fans you've got, how many trophies you've won in your history. If you're at the bottom of the Championship and there's a takeover that takes a load of time, they make the wrong managerial hire and say have a bad January transfer window, they could be relegated if they get all of that chaos wrong. And I don't know, for example, they make a bad managerial hire like a Zola with Trillian at Birmingham. And all of a sudden you're in all sorts of trouble and you're parachuting in, I don't know, Sam Allardyce with 10 games to go saying, get us the hell out of this. So be under no illusions. If they get this all badly wrong and there's chaos, Derby will be in trouble. If they get it right and either Rooney and Rosenior with Allardyce as technical director do well, up the table they go. If they then get the hire right and the next transfer window right, up the table they go and fine. And Derby move into an area where we're more used to seeing them, you know, in the top half of the table and basically in the playoffs for most of the last sort of 5 or 6 seasons. But there is the scenario where this goes all horribly, horribly wrong. And yeah, you're in the bottom 3 and games start to run out. Remember, we'll be up to game number 20 by Christmas. So there'll only be 26 games left if, say, they do want to put a manager in at that point. So I do think it's a sensible move in the short term. And it's not just going back to the same old, well, he's in a different position, in a different situation. And there's plenty of other options down the other end. I hope that makes sense. That's my view. Should we have a look at some of your comments here? Oh, God, the nightmare of Zola managing Birmingham. There we go. Never a dull moment at Derby, says Steve. No. DJ saying Steve McClaren going to take Derby County to League One. Now, the only way that will possibly happen, I don't think that will happen, is if the takeover happens, they get the managerial hire wrong, they have a bad transfer window, and with about 8 games to go, there's chaos. They kick out the manager they've hired and they say to McClaren, oh, can you just do the job for the last 8 games? Otherwise, that's not happening, I don't think. Is this me or is Ben's shirt making anyone else want a glass of orange juice? What are they thinking, Jack? I think it's sensible thinking if you've listened to the actual situation that they've put him into, I think it's pretty smart on what are they thinking. If Big Sam has ended Rooney's career as beloved Everton, can you see the two getting on? Maybe not. Hard to get things done by committee. Hope it works out. Well, yes, I agree with that, David. You would assume that that there'd be a technical director-manager relationship, and obviously McClaren had Rooney Wazza. England are used to call him this. So, is this a joke? No. And again, look at the nuance. He's not the manager, so I don't think Derby fans would be unhappy with it. McClaren's son, Joe, has remained a scout for Derby for many years. Recruitment and scouting seen as weaknesses by many Rams fans, indeed. So Rooney's a number 2 then to McClaren. No, McClaren's the technical director and Rooney and Rossini are the interim managers. Remember, a technical director does not pick the team. So no, not a number 2. Guys, I'm not going to be doing a watch along tonight on the channel. I'm doing Blue Monday stuff. Ipswich and Hull, but I will be doing Bristol City and Watford tomorrow night. If Harry Redknapp being technical director at Derby didn't work out, did they have Harry Redknapp as technical director? I wasn't aware of that. There we go. In the words of Atletico Minster, I wonder if he's took his Casper the Snake and a box of fun and laughter bars with him. There you go, Steve McClaren. Plus his son is head of scouting. Yes, we have had that picked out. Hi, Ben. Pound for pound, one of our most successful employees, 55 and 44% win rate in 2 expels. Ex-coach under Dean Spliff. Ex-player, what we've needed, a technical director for years. And that could be the case. And if whatever the, what they called again, Davencio, excuse me, do want a technical director, then he might be there for 5 years, and they might fly in a Paul Cook who would be happy to work underneath him. Football is about personalities. It all depends on the characteristics of McClaren and Matt. Yeah, absolutely. Can they work together? Thought this was a prank. He's not the manager, Travelling Blade. Check out Travelling Blade's channel as well. I really like the sound of McClaren, Rooney, Fletcher with good young academy players. Could work. Couldn't it? Could work. Good luck, Derby. One of the worst QPR managers. Again, I'll repeat. He's not the manager. He's the technical director there. Get Struber in to save you at Derby. There you go. Good manager. It might well be smart. Clubs look in a strange place on the surface. 24 from chasing playoffs. Rossini. Yeah, Rossini is very good, actually, I have to say, from what I've seen. Harry Redknapp oversaw Wilson. We got into playoffs, but lost. Oh, I remember it well. Yes, no, you're right, Jay. He was the director. Loves Derby, doesn't he? He absolutely does love Derby. So look, the low information response to this is, why Derby got Steve McClaren as the manager? But a little bit of digging and a little bit of actually analysing what's happening and what they've done and the amount of options this actually gives them. The fact he's familiar to Morris and to Derby and the Championship and very experienced. This is a thumbs up for me for a short-term thing in the absence of new owners being in there. And look, of course, if we were sat here today and Derby was sitting there with Rafa Benitez, Sam Allardyce, Eddie Howe, Paul Cook, who are all, either very experienced or proven in the Championship, I'd be sitting here saying, okay, away you go. Good hire. But presumably they can't do a deal like that until the new owners are in. And that all needs to be factored into this discussion. Now, William asks, what do technical directors actually do? In long-term thinking, technical directors actually run the club. If you look at someone like a Stuart Webber at Norwich, he essentially comes in, he decides what he wants Norwich to be and how he's going to shape it. He then works with the recruitment, brings in a manager and players, all in terms of, discussed. It wouldn't be like, I'm giving you these players, you have to work with them. And they basically shape what the club is going to be. And then the manager or the coach becomes an ingredient in that club's philosophy, which is then shaped from the owner through the technical director. If the owner says to the technical director, I want young players played. I want to recruit in this way using this amount of funds and shop in these pools, then that is how the technical director then works. So then that type of technical director then maybe wouldn't hire Sam Allardyce. They maybe would hire Gerhard Struber, wouldn't they? Because it would be like, right, I want to use the European market. I want to use these scouts. I want to play this way and I want to bring the youngsters in. You know, whereas if the technical director said, I want to get into the Premier League as quickly as possible, maybe you would bring Sam Allardyce in and give him some money, and he'll do what he did at West Ham, or an Eddie Howe at Bournemouth. So that is what a technical director does in the long term. However, in the short term, this might well be Steve McClaren has lots of dialogue with Wayne Rooney and Liam Rosenior. They run their ideas by him. He says, maybe I would do this, maybe I would do that. What are you thinking going forward? And it works in that way. But we'll see on the other end of the takeover whether that's going to be the case. But I will quote you again, the Derby website. Technical director, a position which has been identified by agreement between Mel Morris and Devonshire Holdings as important in the future of the club. So what I will say is it sounds like that's the way they want to run it. So not owner and manager just with autonomy to do everything they want, but owner, technical director, manager, which might give us a clue as to who's actually going to be the new Derby manager. Because for all of the bets going on Sam Allardyce or Rafa Benitez, they don't need a technical director. They're old school. They are the technical director and the recruitment and the coach all in one. Whereas the modern thing is, oh, here is technical director, whoever, and here is coach, whoever. And I think even a Liverpool or a Manchester City with Cheeky Bagirstein, pronunciation, sorry, and Pep Guardiola. And at Liverpool, they do have someone above Jurgen Klopp in the technical director position. And as I say, Stuart Webber's been, in championship terms, the master of that position with promotions at Huddersfield and at Norwich before. There we go. Let's do a couple more comments. There you go. Dan Ashworth. Dan Ashworth, Jack says at West Brom was so good. England then took him and paid him a ton of money to be their technical advisor or what have you. Can you have a manager with a technical director, or does it have to be categorized? Yeah, I guess, Ollie, it does. It is then a coach and a technical director, isn't it? So never dull at Derby. Better when any soap. Don't know what that means. Steve is back. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, shame the FA pinched him. Get Mick in if all goes wrong. Cheaper, Allardyce, more charisma. True, indeed. Spot on, Ben. Technical director is going to be important in the handover of the club. Yeah, and look, Steve McClaren might just end up being a consultant that helps with the handover. That's all he might end up doing. But he knows the club, he knows the division, and he'll have the ear of the new owner and the existing owner, because we know Mel Morris loves Steve McClaren anyway, don't we? There we go. And some say the championship is boring. There's always something to discuss. Absolutely. From one Dutch master to another. Any closer to the takeover, says Aaron Bange. You would think, I think everything is kind of done and ready. Presumably, they're quibbling over minutiae and lawyers are thumbing through contracts that thick. It looks like it's going to be done, but this would tell you that there's probably still a few weeks to go in terms of actually getting things through and ratified. And remember, a few weeks in the championship, this season particularly, is 6 or 7 games. And 6 or 7 games to a team like Derby, who are currently at the bottom of the league, grossly underperforming their size and history. Not to say that's any guarantee of where you're going to finish. That means that something needs to be done. You can't just throw Wayne Rooney and Liam Rosenior into this no-win position where there's essentially no leadership long-term above them, and McClaren is there to bridge that gap. Right. Thank you, everybody, for watching. That's about the size of it. when you comment on this, please remember he's not the manager. And remember, we are mid-takeover. That is key in all of this. Right. There we go. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Impromptu stream. It's much quicker for me to do it this way, assuming the technology all holds up and I don't look like a potato and the internet holds up okay. So that's why I did it that way. In terms of what's coming up on the channel, no watch along tonight. I'm on Blue Monday duty doing Ipswich Hull. But we will review tonight's games tomorrow morning, and we'll be here for Bristol City versus Watford tomorrow night, corresponding with Derby versus Middlesbrough, and Steve McClaren in the technical director position with Rooney and Rossini interim bosses for that. Right. Hope that all makes sense. Get your comments in on that. Please remember when you're commenting, he's not the manager. I know you lot in the chat understand. That's for the people watching on delay. Thank you, everybody. And it's over and out from me. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button to see more videos from this channel. Hit the subscribe button and to be notified every time we upload. Ring the bell for those notifications to come through on your device. If you really want to support the channel and me as a content creator, I will be eternally grateful if you head over to the merch store and grab something, or support over on Patreon, patreon.com/Benjamin Bloom. Thank you for your time. Go and watch another video.